Good morning, CLC. Hopefully, you are having a wonderful Sunday morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service. So, with that, I invite you to say with me right now, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is. And now, I invite you to relax. Take a few deep breaths, cleansing your body, centering your mind. Allow any thoughts, concerns, just to drift away for the moment. Relaxing your body and focusing your attentions so you can be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own, for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I allow myself to I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words: I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence in saying, I am grateful for the good in your life.
Good morning, Creative Life. Good to see you today. Well, Brian broke the news to you. It's springtime. I was going to be the one, but there it is. That's right. That was yesterday sometime. The cat is out of the bag. It is, in fact, springtime. And yes, Reverend Lisa took pictures of the azaleas last week. You can't keep a good azalea down, you know? So, I wanted to share with you this morning several things out of the book Key to Yourself by Venice Bloodworth. Venice Bloodworth was an independent New Thought metaphysician in the middle years of the 20th century, and in honor of her terrific legacy and Women's History Month and springtime and the idea of a gradual reopening to life as we know it, I present you Key to Yourself from Venice Bloodworth, and I'm going to read you some passages out of her book and comment on them because I'm practicing for a book study. But this is going to be a one-sided book study today because I'm going to do all the talking. But if you were here in the room with us, you'd talk back. You know you would. Yeah. So I'm going to imagine that you are out there in Facebook and YouTube land as I share with you about Key to Yourself. But before doing so, I want to tell you a very cool story that I shared with our musicians last week by text late into the evening. We were talking about the Grammy Awards, and you recall that I mentioned last week Megan Thee Stallion from Houston was up for awards, which she then won later that night. And so we were texting back and forth, and somebody said, oh, and also there's here, and Beyonce with the most Grammy wins of any woman in history, and tied with Quincy Jones for the most Grammy wins by any musician ever, also from Houston. And here at Creative Life, we've not had Beyonce on our stage yet. And yet, you gotta keep the faith. We've not had Megan Thee Stallion on our stage yet. We tend to get musicians here, touring musicians, guest musicians, who are at the front end of their career, and they're working their way. They're playing smaller venues, smaller houses, and working their way up. And in 2015, Adrienne Lenker and Buck Meek played here on a Sunday morning, and they have created a band called Big Feast, and Adrienne Lenker was nominated for Best Rock Song and Best Rock Performance at the Grammys. How cool is that? Right here they stood when they were 5 years younger and all. And when these kids play here, and I'm of an age where I can call them kids and sort of get away with it, it's not disparaging or anything. When these kids play here, we often say to them, or at least think, one day I'm going to be able to tell people I sat 10 feet from you in a little room when you're big and famous. And I see that in you. I see that in you. I hear that in your work. And we've felt that way, I remember that day. You and I, you may not recall, Jeffrey, but we turned to each other like we do in normal times when I'm sitting where you are now and you're at the piano, and we make eye contact and we're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. True professionals and truly gifted individuals. So congratulations to Adrienne, Buck, Big Feast is the band. You can look them up. The song is called Not, N-O-T. So, key to yourself. Beth Mowens is calling games for the Chicago Cubs now. First woman to work Cubs broadcast. First woman. I'm not sure what other plaudits, what other barriers she's broken through in terms of the work that she's doing now, but she was one of the first women sportscasters in multi-sport action, where they bring her in. Her background, her personal background was basketball, but they bring her into different games. She called an NFL game, I think, on a Thursday night. Congratulations to her as the Chicago Cubs, of whom I know Brian is a big fan, and Mary Lynn. You guys are huge Cubs fans, so you check out Beth Mowens broadcasting with Jim DeShays, who used to be a broadcaster here. Jim DeShays, I have a Jim DeShays story. You want to hear my Jim DeShays story? You wishing I'd get on with it, wouldn't you? Well, anyway. He one time struck out the first 7 batters he faced in a game and broke a record, and I happened to be at that game. And nobody knew what was going on till it was like over with, but it was really cool. And people still remind him of that to this day. So he was left-handed. He had a wicked overhand curveball. Okay, so key to yourself. Venice Bloodworth, she's talking in here. This is chapter 16, and she's talking about desire. The whole point of her teaching, really very simple. And you know who quoted it the other day without knowing it was Venice Bloodworth? Beth Mowens, new broadcaster for the Chicago Cubs, who said, if you can see it, you can be it. If you can see it, you can be it. What does it take? Desire, as in chapter 16 here. The mystic road to success is through the land of desire. After we reach the age of reason and independent action, we do what we want to do. You may be inclined to argue with me about this and say that circumstances are too strong for you, or the duty keeps you from taking a chance at gaining your desire. But any such argument simply shows a lack of understanding on your part, for the right sort of desire will break down anything that stands in the way of its fulfillment. The right sort of desire will break down anything that stands in the way of its fulfillment, because what really stands in the way of fulfillment is our own doubt. There's really nothing else. It looks like there are other things, but they are projections and manifestations of our doubt and our fear and our insecurity and our unhealed issues. The right sort of desire. What is the right sort of desire? The right sort of desire is the desire that benefits everyone. Mutual good. I affirm and know this in mutual good. I remember early on in the days of our center, there was a guy, we were still meeting at a hotel, and there was somebody in the group who wanted a house that they had seen, and it wasn't for sale. And so they just driven by it, you know, so, hey, I'd like to live there. And they said, can I treat for that? And we're like, well, you can't just eject whoever's living there out of that place. That would be wrong, even if you could manage to do it. And if you could manage to do it, you would be placing yourself in the midst of a karmic response that would have you thrown out of somewhere else. And the world doesn't work well that way. If people are being pitched into the street out of houses and out of jobs so that somebody else can have it, no. How about we do this in mutual benefit, in mutual benefit? And so if that's the house for you, then the people who are living there are right now deciding it's time to make a change. And if they're not deciding that, then the house for you is not that particular house, but has attributes of that particular house. And these people, the person that was saying this had never been inside the house, so they had no idea what it looked like. They just like, what do they call it now, curb appeal. They liked how it looked, you know. And so there's some perfect place for you that this is reminding you of, if this isn't that perfect place. And if this perfect place or this perfect situation is in the keeping of someone else right now. They manifested it by right of consciousness, and so can you, and so do you all the time. That's the right sort of thing. Now, the question comes up and say, well, that's all right, I get it with a house. Somebody's living there, they may or may not want to move, there are other houses for me. But what about really complicated issues that exist in society where two different groups of people, like economically, want prosperity, but they, in order to get it, they feel like the other party has to change? I'm thinking of like an example that came up in a class one time was environmental people, environmentalists who are deeply concerned about climate change and about the future of the earth, and the people who make money doing things like logging or in the petroleum exploration and discovery area, anything having to do with heavy industry. How can both of these groups have their needs met? We're coming to that, but I'll give you a clue, and you've heard it before here. I don't know, but there is something that does know. There's a way. There's a way. And how you get to the way is you keep talking and you keep praying. So let's see what else she has to say about this as we go on here through desire. What are the desires of your heart? She says, and I love it, these writers, they write, when it's really important for you to hear it, it's in all caps, man. Ernest Holmes does this too. Sometimes it's in all caps and underlined and with exclamation points, and it's like really grabbing you up by the throat. The universal mind is omnipotent and omnipresent. It surrounds you like the sunshine and air. Your subconscious mind is a part of the universal mind. And through your subconscious mind, you have access to the mighty wisdom and power of the universal mind. When you realize this fact, there is no limit to your achievement, for the mind does its building solely by the power of thought. Its creations take form in exact accord with your mental image, and desire builds the mental image for you. Now wait, what? How many minds are we talking about here? There's subconscious mind, there's universal mind. Let's break it down. Let's make it 3, shall we? Just for the sake of argument. Conscious mind, subconscious mind, and universal mind, which contains the first 2. Your conscious mind, your intellect, is where you make choices. Your subconscious mind is where you go to riffle through the files of previous choices and the emotion that was attached to those and what was going on at the time in your experience of life and so on. You bring up that information from the subconscious mind, based largely on it, as well as perceptions of what's going on today. You make conscious choices, and then you send the whole thing back into the subconscious mind as a new pattern, where it takes its place among all the other patterns. And if the other patterns are contrary to the new pattern you've set down, well, then something has to give, right? And the pattern that, if you will, wins, the pattern that is most successful and gains the most purchase in the subconscious mind is the one that has the most emotion around it, the most feeling. Because it draws then feeling off of prior choices and prior experiences. It gathers in this feeling, and the feeling begins to move. It begins to migrate from one conscious thought package to another. It moves over there. It's kind of like, I don't know, the latest new thing, right? The latest new, imagine a population of us who are into music, okay? And here's this great new artist, and they're performing, and it's wonderful, and it's wonderful. And then over here, somebody else starts to perform, and they kind of capture our attention, and the fan base begins to move. Fan base begins, and it's the latest new. Ooh, it's the latest new thing. It's the latest new thing. Now we haven't abandoned the first performer, have we? No, but they're now on their second or third go round. They've toured a while, and they're familiar to us, and we love it. And a lot of their music, I'm watching music videos, a lot of their music takes us back to how we felt at the time when we first heard them. But over here, there's this new thing going on. And this is where all the folks maybe that are just discovering popular music are heading. And you know how long this goes on? Forever. As long as there's been recorded music, this has gone on. And before there was recorded music and all you had was live performance, this went on. And there were probably people who said, Beethoven has a 9th symphony out? You'd think. Why would anyone need 9 symphonies? Didn't he say it all in the 5th? That was a lovely one, you know. And there probably, right? And there's always more being created. It's only today that we call it golden oldies and stuff like that, you know. But something new always captures the imagination. Electric cars, you know, that's a new one now. The different car makers have incentives to create electric cars. And it's like first there was this, I won't name brands, but first there was this one, you know, and then this and this. Oh, look, now they're coming out with one, and you can kind of hear the feet, right? You can have as everybody migrates over there. Okay, the point of this is that in the subconscious mind, this is kind of how it works. A new idea. A new exciting idea. And all the thoughts, all the energy, all the feeling, all the sympathies in the self begin to head there. You make it compelling. You sell this to the subconscious mind. It's really kind of an inside sales job, an inside job of persuasion of the self. Years ago when I was in advertising, they had a saying, and it said, to sell the steak, as in like ribeye, to sell the steak, show the sizzle. If you describe a steak, it's kind of gross, really. But you, right? Yeah, but you show the sizzle and the aroma and all of this, right? This is how vacations are sold. This is how cosmetic dentistry is sold. Cosmic too, right? You know, this is who you are. This is who you could be. Ooh, right? And what happens? It stirs up a feeling in there. Real estate, they stage things now, you know, and everything is why to make it your home before you're there. Everything, this is the story of persuasion. In the culture, it's how products and services get moved from place to place. The subconscious mind is more elegant than that, more complicated than that, but in terms of choice making and actualization, this is how it works. Okay? It's got a lot else going on. Make no mistake, it is vast. It is really infinite. You get right down to it. But in terms of manifesting your desires, which is what we're talking about this morning, this is how it works. You get more excited about the thing you wish to create in your life as though you had already created it and are stepping into it. You get more excited about that than you were ever upset about the thing whose place it's taking. Where the emotional attachment is, there is future creation. So again, the conscious mind selects, deposits this idea into the subconscious mind loaded with feeling, where it takes its place and takes the place of anything that would confound it or conflict with it. And then, as a matter of natural course, like the springtime, it sends it back up through the conscious mind and out into the universal experience, so that you round a corner and you run into it. Like the azaleas bloom. You know, they're pretty predictable. We're giving them a lot of love this year because they came through a really hard winter, as winters go around here. But they're very predictable. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. Now, I didn't think up them doing it, and you didn't think up them doing it, but some mind did, and the mind that did is the mind that we use in a local and personal way. So she goes on to say that as this is occurring through you, this is the secret of the power of prayer. God is not being flattered or bought by promises into granting your desires. And for the longest time, I thought God was. And I had to make a deal, and I was sort of taught this, or maybe I just kind of came up with it on my own through a misinterpretation of what was going on around me, but I thought, God, I'll go to church, or I'll stop being so judgmental, or I'll meet you halfway on this thing, as though I were dealing with an outer power. There is no outer power. It says here it's not being bought by promises into granting your desires. It says if that were true, then every person would receive their wish, for there is no one living who has not prayed for something. Well, that's true. The key is not earnestness in prayer, just that. It's not just the beads of sweat appear on your forehead and your fists are clenched and you're like all intense about it. That's not a bad thing. But the key is, do you accept it? Do you accept it? Do you feel worthy of it? Do you give it permission fully in your life to occur? Do you feel worthy of this thing? Can you imagine it? Is it really your idea, or is it somebody else's idea about you? Do you really embody it? And that's a word Ernest Holmes used a whole lot, embodiment. Do you embody the new idea? Then you're sending a complete package, a complete presentation into the subconscious mind from which to manifest. When you pray earnestly, you form a mental image of what you want, and if your faith is strong enough, you hold your desire in your thoughts. Then the universal mind works with you and for you, thus bringing your desire into manifestation. What is the universal mind? Well, the universal mind, as I said, encompasses the conscious and subconscious of each of us. At the conscious level, we're all one. At the subconscious level, we're really all one. At the conscious level, I can pretend to be separate. I'm not, but I can pretend to be. I can pretend to have private little thoughts in my head, my own agenda, my own path. At the subconscious level, everything about me connects with everything about everyone else. And it all goes to result. It all moves to outcome. No matter how random, no matter how seemingly accidental, everything is synchronistic in some way. And here's the cool thing. The more meaning that we read into it, the more meaning it has for us. You see? If we get up and feel real miscellaneous in our day, we get an experience back that looks like that, not because that's the truth of all creation, but because that's the wavelength we've tuned into. But you can actually mess with this and have fun with it. It's like if you decide, an example that comes to mind in this area is if you decide you're driving, okay, and you want to get on the freeway. And you go up the ramp onto the freeway. You have absolutely no idea who's already on the freeway, do you? Where they came from, what their purposes are, how far. They might have driven states and states away, just come to town, or they might just have got on. Well, why don't you try this? Imagine that you're joining your family. Imagine that you're joining your community. Imagine that you're joining godlings who welcome you. Say, hey, wonderful, you want to come on the... Now, does this sound nuts to you? Driving in Houston traffic, okay, it sounds like a real stretch. Try it. Watch what happens. And don't worry if you forget to try it or any of this, because you won't forget in the long run. That's how this stuff works. If it's a good idea, and I think this one is, it'll nest in there someplace and it'll come to you at the right time. But just imagine that you're joining some wonderful people who invite you in the same way as someone would into their home, and you go onto, and let's all go together. And isn't this great? And like a flock of geese, you head down the highway. And then, of course, you peel off each to your own destination, And what is the benefit of this for you? What's in it for you? You get to where you're going, and you feel good. You're not all, frazzled from the drive. And you've had a positive experience, not just a neutral one. You've had a really positive experience. Imagine the next store you go into. And I realize we're not going into stores as much now as we were, but we will again. But the next place you go, imagine that the people there are waiting for someone just like you to have an experience together, even if it's just standing in line. If you're standing in line waiting to get your vaccination, imagine that the people there they're like family waiting for you, and you've joined them there, and what's the benefit to you? Don't you want to feel like you live in a world community that's in love with itself. We all the time talk about this, preach this, and make it about big grand gestures out in the world. Well, how about having it begin today for you right now, where the people around you are like family, our community, are your godling brothers and sisters? How about that? How about that? Would you like that? Where do you think it begins? Big misapprehension is we think it begins with them. When other people are finally nice, when other people finally have it together, then and only then will I be welcome in their presence, or want to be. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with them. It's not a song we sing here, right? Let it begin with me. I am the one. That's a benefit to you, is you'll feel like you're in good company. Now here's the other benefit. Others will feel like they are too. Something coming like off of you will they'll want to be with you. They'll want to be around you. You'll become a treasured, a cherished presence. Even if your relationship with these people is only a matter of seconds, there'll be a lasting positive outcome. There'll be a remembrance on some level. And that's how a world is created that works for everyone, which is the motto of this organization. It's not created politically or economically or in big grand ways nearly so much as it's created in the movement of the individual heart. Okay, I know this is a long book. I'm not going to take you through the whole book. You'll be able to have breakfast soon, catch a little March Madness. You like basketball? They've had some wild games on there so far. Hold in mind the thing you desire most. Declare it to be an existent fact. Understand that it is yours for the very moment you desire anything it is given you. But you must hold it steady and want it with all your heart so that the law of growth can take effect. How is it given me the moment that I accept it? I don't see it. I don't hear it. I don't taste it, smell it, or touch it. Well, in the invisible realm, in the intangible realm, it is in my account. How do I know there is an invisible, intangible realm? Well, back up a step. Where did anything come from? Where did anything come from? Somebody has an idea. They can't show the idea. They can't prove the idea. But they believe the idea, and they set to work on the idea, and then the idea manifests as form, and then we go, you see? I was looking at the harp today, Mary's harp. She plays for us sometimes in a harp. I was reading the other day, and this had never occurred to me. You guys probably know this, you musicians. A piano is a harp stood on, laid sideways with a case built around it. That's actually how pianos came to be. Somebody had the idea, what if we put one of these things inside a resonating case? What kind of sound will it make? Well, then how will we get to the strings? Well, what if we hit them with little hammers? Well, how will we move the little hammers? And on and on and on. And every piece of it came together. And at first it was an idea, and probably the first person who thought that up was like, you're crazy. You're crazy. Why would anybody want to? We have a perfectly fine harp here. Why would you want to go and mess with it, and turn it into something else? Why would you want to go have an electric car? Internal combustion engines, well, they work just fine except when they don't. I mean, why would you want to improve anything in this world? Because you have to. Because you just have to. Because you're driven to. We all always are. Hold the idea in mind. Hold the idea in mind. Everything is done according to law. Therefore, if a prayer ever has been answered, yours can be. If anybody has ever been successful, you can be. Life is not carried on by any hit or miss plan. For every effect, there is compelled to be a certain definite cause. So get your causes lined up, and the effects will take care of themselves. Get your causes lined up. Get your causes lined up. What will I cause today, this week, next year? And am I willing to let the effects take care of themselves? In this teaching, we emphasize the what of things, and we let, as far as possible, the how go. I don't know how. How am I going to turn a harp into a piano? I have no idea. How am I going to electrify a car? I have no idea. How am I going to heal world hunger? How am I going to heal global hatred and enmity? I have no idea. But there is something that does know. There is something that does know. and it will take care of the details. The vision manages the details. I have to get willing. I have to get willing to be in a place where nothing has ever been wrong. And I was in a meeting yesterday, a panel discussion yesterday, and the question came up about how can everything be perfect? And this is a whole nother talk, which probably will happen next week. But how can everything be perfect when some of it is such a wreck? How can everything in this life be perfect if everything is such a wreck? And the response to that is that the containment system is complete. It's a big circle like this. Big circle containing the possibility of wreckage, containing the possibility of ruin, containing the possibility of joy, wonder, and amazement. All of this contained within the same system. Otherwise, you know what you'd have? Two systems, right? You'd have the good system that we want to work, and you'd have the other system that we have to defeat. Instead, there's one system, one process, one grand cosmic reality that contains within it the possibility of everything we want and everything we don't want. So, guess what gets handed to us? Our choice, our responsibility, our power. How would I have it be if it can be any way at all? And can I do the most courageous thing possible, the most outrageous thing possible, most outlandish thing possible for any creative being, and that is take my focus off the problem as it now exists and imagine what I would put in its place with such emotional involvement that on some level, the idea that there's ever even been anything less than that begins to fade away. Or as Ernest Holmes put it, rolled up like a scroll and numbered with the things that were once thought to be. That takes courage. It takes a lot of nerve. It takes a lot of nerve. And it also takes, or helps to have, the support and encouragement of people who know what you're up to, who know what you're doing, which is why we have a spiritual community. Not just this center, but all of Centers for Spiritual Living, all of New Thought. So you talk to another New Thought person and you say, I'm putting good where trouble was in my mind and heart. They're going to understand you. They might not know the details of what you're doing. You don't have to share those, but they're going to understand what you're doing. They're going to understand why it works. So we're going to work it together. We're going to work it together now. I'm going to do a closing treatment. Lisa's going to do another closing treatment in a few minutes. Okay? So we're going to treat you up. We're going to treat you up. We're going to treat ourselves up. But that's how treatment works. There is one life, one power, one presence, pure spirit, everywhere manifesting. And the only person I am convincing of this is me. For when I know and speak my word from that knowing, it resounds throughout all creation. I invite you to let these words act as your own, for your own inner acceptance and receptivity, and to frame these words in your words, that there is one life, one power, one presence. That one is God, Source, the infinite, the ultimate, the eternal, however you choose to think of it. And let's think of it as one. So that all form, all thought, all feeling exist in this one, overlapping, intertwining. Everything I experience in form is a thought congealed. That energy has slowed down to the point where it reveals itself as wood or metal or stone, some substance that's recognizable and that's malleable here, but back of it all is mind. Back of it all is mind. And as I stand speaking these words, I hear notes of music coming toward me and swirling around me, and these notes of music are mathematical in their precision. And at the same time, deeply evocative emotionally. How does that happen? Because it's all one. It's all one on different wavelengths, different frequencies, channels. This information is pouring through us. And now it's up to us to interpret it. We are the receiving sets. We interpret this information. For instance, pure unconditional love is communicating itself and always has through each one of us. What will I do with that today? Well, I declare now that this love embraces all living beings, all inanimate forms. I claim now that this love is mighty to heal, and it lifts the fallen, binds the wounds of the suffering. I claim that this love is mighty to supply, and it brings food and energy and support to all who might need it anywhere. I claim that this love is mighty to harmonize, and it brings clarity and open communication into every household, into every dynamic, every workplace. And I claim that this love is mighty to recreate this earth and everyone and everything on it into that paradise that our hearts long for, this heaven on earth. And that every choice made from a place of loving kindness is but another stone in the temple. And all flow together in perfect wisdom to manifest this land of our dreams. So from the personal to the social to the global, all one. Same power, same starting point. This word, your word, my word. And as I release this word, I release it with love and joy and peace for each one hearing it, and in confidence that it is so. I release it now and call it done. And so it is.
All right. I know we talk a lot about Facebook and YouTube, and I just want to tell you that these are tools that you can use. So I'm going to give you a couple of other ones, and then I will tell you why. On the YouTube channel, somewhere either on one side or across the top, you'll see where it says playlists. And that's what Danielle is referencing. If you click on playlists, then what that will do is that will show you all of the different lists that I have put the talks into. So Soul Session will have all of the soul sessions that I have access to right now. We'll find, we're working on getting some of the ones before we started videotaping them up in it as well. You'll also, they're also, the benefit of the playlist is I can put them in multiple playlists. So the soul sessions are in the month that they were in, and in the soul sessions. When we have guest speakers, I put them in the month that they are in, as well as under their name, if they've had more than one talk. So you have multiple guest speakers, although most of us aren't guests anymore. We're on staff here. I'm trying to give up the I'm a guest speaker, because I'm not. I'm staff. So that is one of the tools that you can use. Another tool that you can use is Facebook. I do try and make sure that when I see interesting things posted on Facebook, I move them over to our Facebook page so that you can see them as well. So there are some of you, Sharon Minery, who post really amazing things, and I constantly am taking your stuff to put on our Facebook page. But you can also follow some other Facebook pages. There are two in particular. If you've seen the Lent project that's been going on, I'm getting that from a Facebook page. It's literally Centers for Spiritual Living Spiritual Leader. That currently is Edward Viljoen, and he's got this project going that I've been moving his stuff to our page as well. There's also, if you didn't know, Centers for Spiritual Living has a Facebook page. Now, the whole point of me going into all of this and telling you about this is, one, I would like you to follow those pages because they're good stuff. Two, because the world's a little crazy. The world's a lot crazy. And if you want to know what Centers for Spiritual Living response to the shooting in Atlanta is, we've posted it. We have posted our support for the Asian American community and the Pacific Island community. So we have a response from our home office. And right now, I am responding from from Creative Life Centers. I can't even talk today, I'm sorry. Our response is we stand with our Asian American and our Pacific Island brothers and sisters, just as we stand with our African American, our Native American, our indigenous populations. We stand with all of you for the simple fact that we are all one. We walk our talk. So we want you to know that we support you, we love you, and we are working our work. We are doing our work, and we are doing it both on the spiritual level and on this level as well. So, that being said, I'm going to go back to what Jesse said about patterns. That's where I'm going to treat today. I'm going to treat about our patterns. So I'm going to know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. I know that I am a part of this love, that this love flows through me. It flows through me, in me, as me. And I know that this love is capable of creating new patterns, of creating patterns of love, patterns of care, patterns of compassion, patterns of talking, patterns of getting to know one another, patterns of digging deep underneath the incidental appearances, patterns of loving the self, and patterns of loving the self. And these patterns, they're already there. And as each and every one of us recognize and take in these patterns, the world shifts into a world that works for everyone. We are one in this love. We are one in this teaching. We are one in this world. All life is connected. And all life loves. And so I know this. I know this shifting of patterns. I know this love. And I know each and every one of you in this love. And I speak my word now for all of that and so much more. And I release it knowing it is done even as I speak these words. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And I love
And
it.
so it is.
So it is.